Now, in an age where our children, they swipe, they tap on their smartphones and their tablets, literally from the minute they can do it, there is a real fear that we're losing what we used to be, I suppose, the most important skill in life, the art of handwriting.
Shane Lahan is with us, folklorist. Shane, does this kind of go against the whole folklore thing where all the stories were handed down from Glone to Glone, and you've gone to the written side now? Are you gone to the dark side?
Well, it's part of what I call folk life, because I think this is a vernacular craft that resides within all of us. It's something that we've been taught. Think about civilization and think about points in civilization where we developed language and so on. Imagine being able to capture our thoughts, our ideas, our philosophies, everything. Writing is a kernel, is a core to everything that we have. And I suppose Gmain is Maymara, that I'll be alive when I'm dead. Yeah. And the idea that we've grown because of people have written. And what I'm amazed is that we all have this skill. It's something that in education that we've handed down, we've all learned how to write. And I'm noticing, being in education now for about 30 years or so, it's a skill that is declining massively.
So what you're saying is that the handwriting skills, or handwriting isn't as good. The kids aren't writing as well as we did.
Exactly. And my own handwriting. If I say so myself, I grew up in a house where handwriting was everything. My father had beautiful handwriting. We were taught how to write. We had these lovely lined copies. I brought one in to show you.
But they look, you know what? You had to get those right, and you'd have dots. Do you remember, Shane? A would be dots and B, and you literally joined the dots.
And you learned how to do it. And what happened is that you were proud of it. And
this is some of your father's stuff, isn't it?
Some of it is, yeah. In fact, I brought in, my dad had this fantastic, he loved writing. I just brought him to show you. He's just write for fun, believe it or not. And this is just an example of what he used to do. He's just to sit down.
That's his handwriting?
That's his handwriting, yeah. And
that's unbelievable.
Beautifully laid out, you know.
Nothing else there, Shane. It's amazing.
How did he get it so straight across? Did he use a ruler?
He absolutely did, and he took
to make
it out.
It accurate.
This was all done with a crow quill, with ink. There was no sort of.
It was like a thumbprint in one sense, wasn't it? To say your writing style.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's something great about that as well. I was thinking about coming in today, and I was thinking that how much we inherit the writing from people who influence us, our teachers, our fathers, and so on. But it also reflects our personality.
Sure.
And I have in my family. I just brought in two examples. One is from my brother Barry. Okay, and my brother Barry, fantastic, super intelligent guy, very civil engineer, professor of civil engineering in University of Western Australia.
Wow.
But he was very precise, very mathematical, and his writing had that very sort of, if you like, never joined up, very clear, very concise.
Does he still write like this?
He does. This is exactly how he writes.
This is funny now, and on that, there was a time in a certain generation would have always, it was what we'd call joined writing, okay?
Steve Cangleton.
And then you'd have us, we didn't have joint writing, because in my mother's day and my dad's day, it was all joint writing. They didn't know how to write print one by one. But it's really weird. John, my husband, who is not of that generation, still always wrote like Steve Cangleton. So it's funny. When did it change, Shane? Do you know?
It changes. I think it changed in schooling, and there was particular types of lettering brought in, the sophistication. It goes back to the copper plate, okay? Copper plate is done with a particular nib or a particular pen. This isn't a copper, but you applied pressure and so on. The fountain pen that came in afterwards, that all allowed you to do the faster writing, as it were. But just to go back to...
Just to show us, actually, this is your other brother.
This is my other thing. My late brother Rory, who was a very flamboyant guy, okay, absolutely wonderful. He was a doctor, and he always wrote it in a purple lilac pen.
So he wrote in doctor writing.
But he had beautiful writing for a doctor. And there was a sense of his expression of his character. So going back, I think handwriting does express who we are. It's an accumulation not only of culturally of us as a group, but as individuals, what we decide to express ourselves.
But on the other side as well, like say, I'd have stuff that my mother would have written down years ago, and I know her handwriting straight away. And you would, though, would have certain people.
I would have known my aunts, I would have known my fathers from my mothers and all that. But I suppose we started off at the top of this item just saying now kind of our kids, for example, who are literally on tablets from, the time they can pick up one.
It's terrifying.
And they're typing everything away.
Yeah, like long ago when someone would say to me, a student would say to me, should I write this or will I type it? I would say, type it. You have to type it because that made it official. That made it sort of legible for everyone.
That you had the typewriter.
Yeah, you know,
enough money to have one.
It was an aspiration to modernity, to technology, to everyone. And in a way, if I get something handwritten from a student now, I'm delighted because it's full of individuality. It's full of the need to communicate.
There's no autocorrects or anything.
And there's no copy and pasting, which is even more interesting
That's
in a way.
true,
You know,
and this is the project you're working on. Tell us about it.
Okay, so this was something I've been developing projects with my students for the last 30 years. This year we decided to do one on the disappearing craft of letter writing. So I got my students in Coláiste Stefan Nefa to write to as many people as they could. And they wrote to politicians, to artists, to sports personalities, to everyone. And what we did is we asked them all to handwrite a letter back. And we brought all of those letters back, we've blown them up, and we put them on exhibition.
How many letters back did you get?
Oh, we got a huge number. I would say about 50% of who we wrote to.
And I'd imagine they were really happy to get involved in something like this as well.
This is you know, Bobby Ballard, the great artist.
He was with us, of course, that he wrote a book about his life, which he said he'd never do, but he did.
But it was great to have someone, you know, for one of my students, Emer Dunn, to get a reply from an artist as with the calibre of Robert Ballard.
What would you say about his character? You know who Robert Ballard is, of course. And just from this note, what would you take from
Well,
it?
I'm not a handwriting expert, but I'll tell you one thing, that he doesn't have a computer, he doesn't have a smartphone, and he loves to write back because he designed so many postage stamps. He said he has a vested interest in keeping things
He's amazing. In his book, Robert Ballard, which is actually a very thick book, an anthology of his life, really, he talked to us about writing it all by hand and going back over it and all that.
This is
Joe Duffy.
Joe wrote back, and wonderfully Joe wrote back with a fountain pen. And I think fountain pens are something that you know, if you see there, and his friend Frank DC, he says, always encouraged him to write with a fountain pen, and he does so, and you can see his lovely flamboyant writing.
That takes an extra skill though, Shane, to write with a fountain pen.
It does.
Because you don't want to get it all over your fingers.
It does.
You're right, actually, you have to be light with the pen.
You remember the ink Clangodahi in the inkwells?
I remember them in school. I don't remember using them now, but they were there. They were in the desk.
There's a story where the people they used to be drinking out of the inkwells. They used to be drinking the ink, and as children, you know, when they started off first, you know, and their teeth would be full of ink and so on. Yeah. No, but just, you know, when you were young and going back that generation when they started.
You only did it once though.
Now this letter here, tell us about this.
This is a colleague of mine at work, Rachel Abraham, and her mouse died when she was young, when she was in school, and the teacher kind of laughed, so her friends decided, you know, that they would write her a sympathy note, and it's fantastic. I'll read it very quickly. I'm very sorry that your mouse has died. I hope that your next mouse will be as lovable as the late mouse has been. I know what it's like to lose a pet. Our family has 6 dogs, 4 of which are now dead, 3 fishes, which 1 is dead, and 4 cats, which 3 are dead. 1 cat was mistaken for a rabbit and shot. The others were killed by cars. I pray for your mouse. Promise, Tar. And I love that because it shows the innocence of the children. It shows...
But the detail.
The detail is
But
great.
I had pen pals from years, one in Africa and one in Clare that I got in the St. Martin's.
We all got them back in the day, 20 years ago.
Don't you remember where
Another one from work, which is a classic. This is from Wendy Keenan. I love Jesus, I love God, I love Mary, I love the angels. Thank you for giving me money for my tooth. I love you all, from Wendy. So that's the tooth fairy.
Shane, that's fabulous. And thank you for coming up with all those lovely examples as well. And of course, as Shane said, the exhibition is in Coláiste Stefan Nefa here in Cork. It's open to the public until the end of May, which is great.
Now, I wonder, did Ray Darcy ever write any love letters to Jenny Kelly?